I am making a pure Honest deck profile. I tested my Zark variant of the deck at a locals recently. I ended up getting 12th place out of 18. But that's also partially because it was a special tournament and I wasn't expecting it, so it was mostly against decks like Rescue Ace, or I think there was one person playing Branded, but 5 of the top 8 were playing Rescue Ace, so. But overall, I still like how the deck played, as that version of the deck was able to get Zark in the Pendulum Scale, but I realized that the main issue I had with it was I was trying to play it with like an Odd Eyes deck, so I figured I'd go ahead and make the Odd Eyes version. So, starting off with the monsters, I play one copy of Performer Palette Odd Eyes Synchron. This card is never going to be in the Pendulum Scale in this deck, so all I have to worry about is this monster effect, which is if it's used as a synchro material for the synchro summon of a monster after being summoned from the extra deck face up, it is removed from play. And that this card is special summoned, you can target a card in your Pendulum Scale, special summon it, and then immediately synchro summon using this card. So this just lets you use your level 7 synchros, since I do play the Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. Or you can use it. Technically, in this deck, you can also play synchros that are level 5, 6, and 9 and 10, as long as they are only require one monster. So, like, Trishula is not usable in this deck, is what I'm getting at. But I probably will end up trying to take out a card for something like Baron de Fleur, since this deck doesn't really lock you into anything. Next, for another one, if I play one copy of Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon. Mirage Dragon's mainly in here for one of the extra deck monsters, which just needs a level 3 Pendulum monster. But Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon has the effect during either player's turn. When an Odd Eyes card is in your Pendulum Scale, you can target an Odd Eyes monster you control. The first time it be destroyed by battle or card effect, that turn is not. Which, I just like it because if your opponent tries to do something like Dark Hole, you can just chain this so you can choose one of your monsters that it can't be destroyed by it. And for more 3s, I play 3 copies of Performer Palette Skullcrobat Joker. Skullcrobat Joker has the effect that when it's normal summon, you can add an Odd Eyes, Performer Palette, or Magician Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. And this card should never end up in your Pendulum Scale, but if it does, it just makes so you can't Pendulum summon monsters except Performer Pals, Odd Eyes, and Magician Pendulum monsters. Then I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. Persona Dragon has the effect that, as a quick effect, it can target a monster that is special summoned from the extra deck to negate its effects until the end of the turn. And its Pendulum effect is during the end phase, if your opponent activated a card that specifically targeted exactly one Odd Eyes monster, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum Scale. Which, you're not really ever going to use that effect, as it's in this deck because it's a scale 1, so you can Pendulum summon your Performer Pal Odd Eyes Synchron and the Mirage Dragon. And also the fact it's an extra deck negate, so I found that useful. I also play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon. Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon, honestly, is probably my favorite of the Odd Eyes monsters, at least in the main deck, as it has the effect that when it deals damage, or when it deals battle damage, you can activate its effect to inflict 1200 damage to your opponent for each Odd Eyes in your Pendulum Scales. So when it attacks directly, you can deal 4900 points of damage. And then its Pendulum effect is if an attack is declared involving your monster, you can activate its effect to give that monster additional 1200 attack till the end of the battle phase. I believe that's when it ends. Yes. And that effect will stay even if Phantom Dragon is destroyed. So even if your opponent tries to use something like Cosmic Cyclone or Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy it when the effect's activated, it will still gain the 1200. Next, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Pendulum Dragon just has the effect that when it deals battle damage while battling a monster, the battle damage is doubled. And then Its pendulum effect is during the end phase you can destroy it to then be able to add a pendulum monster from your deck that has 1500 or less attack, which in this deck I believe is just Phantom Dragon and Mirage Dragon. Check the rest of the deck real quick. The only thing I don't know is if Pendulum Dragon can get Revolution Dragon, just because it's question mark attack, which I don't think it can, but I'll have to find out by asking a couple of judge friends I have. Next, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Arc Pendulum Dragon has the pendulum effect that if an Odd Eyes card or cards you control are destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your deck or hand, deck, or grave. Now you can only use this effect of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon once per turn. And it's also a normal monster, so there's no effect when in the monster zone. Next, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Graft Dragon. Pendulum Graft Dragon is a monster that I kind of don't really know how I feel about it yet, but it is a negation card, so I figured I'd go ahead and play it. It has the monster effect of you can ritual summon this by using Odd Eyes Advent, and then it has to either be ritual summoned or pendulum summoned from your hand, which that's the one thing I like about this is that you don't actually have to ritual summon it, as you can just pendulum summon it. And then if your opponent activates a spell card, you can activate this card's effect to negate the spell and then place it in your pendulum zone. And then afterwards it gains the effect of if it was ritual summoned when you use this effect, you can then special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. Which I don't really ritual summon this monster, but you can technically ritual summon it, so if that effect should ever come up, you can do that, but I'd rather use it for a later monster. And then for another one-of monster, I play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Saber Dragon. Saber Dragon has the effect that when it destroys a monster in battle, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. Which, technically, Odd Eyes Saber Dragon can come out of this deck, because as long as I'm remembering correctly, this is a 47 card deck, which I'll probably end up taking a couple one-ofs out so I have more consistency, but I figure with how searchable the deck is, playing 47 cards was perfectly fine. And I bring that up because Saber Dragon would be one of the first things to come out. Then I also play 1 copy of Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon. Gravity Dragon has the effect that it can be ritual summoned using Odd Eyes Advent, and then if this card is special summoned, you can return all spells and traps your opponent controls back to the hand, and your opponent can activate cards or effects in response to this card's effect activation. And then its last effect is if your opponent activates a card or effects, they have to pay 500? I can't remember if it's 5 or 8. Yeah, you have to pay 500 life points to activate cards or effects. Which I haven't worked it out yet, but I am planning on playing 2 more Gravity Dragons and 2 more Odd Eyes Advents in my side deck for if I'm playing against a combo deck like Rescue Ace, for example. But I do like, though, that this has the effect that neither player can activate cards in response, so that if Rescue Ace ends up setting 4, if they let the Odd Eyes Advent resolve, he can summon this, and then they can't use any of their cards, so they go back to their hand, which I actually like. Then I also play 1 copy of Hornapel Odd Eyes Dissolver. Odd Eyes Dissolver has the effect that once per turn, you activate its effect of fusion. If it's pendulum summoned, you can special summon a monster from your pendulum scale, and then you can fusion summon using this monster you control. Which, usually if I'm using this effect, it's always going to be with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. As I believe... Okay, no. It can be with any Odd Eyes monster, technically. But usually I'll use it with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon for a specific monster in the extra deck. And then its pendulum effect is just a once per turn fusion summon. Which this deck isn't exactly that fusion heavy, but technically it can be. So, if you want to play a more fusion version of the deck, you can, as the options are there. Since the very searchable Odd Eyes Dissolver Dragon is... Odd Eyes Dissolver. I don't know why I keep trying to call it Odd Eyes Dissolver Dragon. It's not Dragon. But anyway, it's an odd eye, so it's very searchable, and you can always play more than one copy. Then I also play one copy of Odd Eyes Lancer Dragon, one copy of Odd Eyes Advanced Dragon, and one copy of Odd Eyes Phantasma Dragon. Lancer Dragon has the effect that if an Odd Eyes card or cards you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy an Odd Eyes card that is in your hand or face up on your field instead. It's like if I have the Dissolver Dragon on my Pendulum Scale, then usually if I have like an Odd Eyes Fusion in hand, I'll just destroy that. But that's the main thing I like about Lancer Dragon, is just it's a protection effect, however it is only once per turn. And then Advanced Dragon just has the effect that if it deals damage, you can special summon level 5 or higher. Or if they believe it has to be a non-pendulum, though. Okay, yeah. When it destroys a monster in battle, you special summon a level 5 or higher monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position. It does have the effect that if it is tribute summoned, or you can tribute one level 5 or higher monster you control and tribute summon it. If it's tribute summoned, you can target one monster your opponent controls and just destroy it, and then your opponent takes damage equal to that monster's attack. And then Phantasma Dragon has the pendulum effect of once per turn you can discard a card, target a pendulum monster face up in your extra deck, and add to your hand. And then usually this is being summoned off of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon's effect, but it does have the effect that if you have how many was it? If you have face up Odd Eyes Pendulum Monster in your extra deck, and you have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zones, you can special summon it, but you cannot Pendulum Summon the turn you use that effect. And then if it battles a monster, that opposing monster loses 1,000 attack for every face up Pendulum Monster in your extra deck, times 1,000, and then that's more or less it. This is mainly just used to get over monsters that say like they can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, and this just makes them a lot weaker. Like if it's attacking something like Supreme King Zark or Blue Eyes Chaos and X Dragon, as long as there's 2 face-up extra deck monsters in your extra deck, or as long as there's 2 face-up pendulum monsters in your extra deck, I need to make that correction, this will be bigger. As its effect does not target, so it can weaken them to 3,000, or weaken to 3,000. It can weaken them to 2,000, whereas then 1,000 is stronger. The main thing I like about this deck is just summons a bunch of big dragons for no reason. And finally, for the monsters, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. The only effect of Revolution Dragon you're going to use in this deck is that you can discard it, pay 500, to then add any level 8 or lower Dragon Pendulum monster from deck to hand. Although I guess technically you could use it for its Pendulum effect, which is you cannot Pendulum summon monsters except dragons. This effect can't be negated, and then you can target a Dragon Fusion, Synchro, or Xyz monster you control. Or just you control. It is in your graveyard. Destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that target. So technically you can even put this in scale, though usually you'll rather use its effect to search. However, it being a scale 12 does allow you to Pendulum summon your level 8 monsters. Then, moving on to the one-off spells, I play 1 copy of Soul Pendulum, 1 Odd Eyes Advent, and 1 Pendulum Evolution. Soul Pendulum has the effect that if you can target 2 cards in your Pendulum Zones, change their scales by 1 until the end of the turn. So you can take your scale 8s and make them scale 9s, make your scale 4 scale 3, or you make your scale 1 a scale 2. Oh, no, you can make your scale 1 a scale 0. That's what you can do. I keep forgetting that 0 is the lowest. And then every time you Pendulum summon, it gets a Pendulum counter. All your Pendulum monsters... Oh, it has to be Pendulum monster. Let's see, where is it? Yeah. Pendulum monsters on the field gain 300 attack for each counter on this card, and then you can move 3 counters from it during your main phase to get an additional Pendulum summon that turn. Soul Pendulum would be one of the first cards to be kept from this deck, just because it is slow in the fact that it requires you to Pendulum summon 3 times in order to get that additional Pendulum summon. However, I believe Pendulum Evolution can also help with that, as if you special summon Pendulum monster from face down. So yeah, Pendulum Evolution has the effect that in this deck at least has the 2 effects instead of 3. That once per turn you can target or you can reveal a pendulum monster in your hand, shuffle it into the deck, and then add a pendulum monster with a different name from deck to hand. And then Pendulum Evolution's other effect is if you special summon a pendulum monster from your extra deck that was face down originally. So instead of pendulum summoning, you actually did something like XZ summon a pendulum. So for this example, I will say the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. Since it was a pendulum monster that you summoned from your extra deck when it was face down, you get an additional pendulum summon. So technically, the most pendulum summons you can get with this deck in a turn is 3, though you really only need the 1 pendulum summon. So, like I said, I'm trying slow pendulum, and most likely it's going to end up being cut out of the deck. Then I play 2 more 1-ofs in the form of Change of Heart, just because I can steal an opponent's monster and then tribute it for Odd Eyes Advanced Dragon. Or what I can do is I can take an opponent's Baron de Fleur that's already used its negate, activate its effect, target card on the field, destroy it, and then tribute it to summon Odd Eyes Advanced Dragon. That's honestly my favorite thing to do with this deck. Like I said, though, there are several cards that can be cut from the deck. Change of Heart's one of them. And I also play 1 copy of Terraforming. Terraforming just lets you add a field spell from deck to hand. Then I play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Triple Tactics Talent can only be activated when your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase. But it lets you use 1 of 3 effects that you have to declare at activation, where you can either draw 2 cards, take control of an opponent's monster till the end of the turn, or you can look at your opponent's hand and put 1 card back into the deck. Most of the time I use it to draw 2, but if I already have a decent advantage on field, then I will look at my opponent's hand. Or steal an opponent's monster that can then tribute for Odd Eyes Advanced Dragon or other things. And just because I just now remembered, Odd Eyes Advent has the effect that when you can use it to ritual summon any Odd or Dragon ritual monster. However, you have to tribute pendulum monsters for it. And they can ritual summon a dragon ritual that is in your hand or graveyard. So, that is a thing. Then, I play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance can only be activated once per turn. But if you have a card in your pendulum scale, you can activate it to add a card that has pendulum in its name from your deck to hand. So, you can add Ice Pendulum Dragon, Arc Pendulum, Soul Pendulum, what was it? Pendulum Evolution. As long as Pendulum is in the name, it can be added from deck to hand. Then I play 3 copies of Sky Iris. Sky Iris you can only use its effect once per turn, but you can target one other face-up card in your field, destroy it, and if you do, add an Odd Eyes card from deck to hand. So you can use this to add Odd Eyes Advent, Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon, any card as long as it says Odd Eyes. And then its last effect prevents your opponent from targeting your Performapal, Magician Pendulums, or Odd Eyes monsters in your pendulum scales with card effects. Next, I play 3 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. Spiral Flame Strike can activate 1 of 2 effects, and my favorite part of it says not once per turn. So if you see 3 of these, you can actually use them to get 3 searches, search for 1 or 2 cards, and then destroy 1, 2, or 3 cards, depending on whether or not you already control an Odd Eyes card. But if you control an Odd Eyes card, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it, or you can add a level 7 Odd Eyes from deck to hand. And then finally, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Fusion. Odd Eyes Fusion has the effect that you can fusion summon a Dragon Fusion monster by using monsters from your hand or field's material. Or if your opponent controls 2 monsters and you have none, you can also use 2 Odd Eyes monsters in your extra deck. And that is it for the main deck. Like I said, it's 47 cards, but I already know of at least 3 cards that can come out, and technically 4. So it can easily be reduced. And for the fusion monsters, I play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. You can only use each effect of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon once per turn. where if it's special summoned, you can activate its effect to be able to target one attack push monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. And then one other thing you can do is if your opponent activates a card or effect, you can activate Vortex Dragon's effect to shuffle a pendulum monster that's face up in your extra deck back into your deck, and if you do, negate that card effect and destroy it. And then my favorite of the fusion monsters in the deck is the one copy of Ruinized Pendulum Dragon. Ruinized has the effect that if it's fusion summoned using monsters that were pendulum summoned, that's unaffected by card effects for the turn. And then it gets multiple attacks depending on the level of spellcaster you use to summon it. Where if you use a level 5 or level 4 or lower, it gets 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, or if you use a level 5 or higher, it gets 3 attacks. The only downside of this card, though, is that it is on monsters, so unless you're placing someone that has a bunch of monster effects that float into other monsters, this isn't going to be able to attack directly if your opponent has monsters, but you can attack 3 of them, but it can only attack directly once, if that makes sense. Then for Synchros, I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Meteor Burst Dragon has the effect that once per turn, or when it's special summoned, you can target a card in your Pendulum Scale and special summon it. And then during the battle phase, your opponent can't activate monster effects, so this can turn off the. Make sure your opponent can't use the effects of monsters that say something like. They can't use something like Mystic Tomato, which will, when destroyed by battle, lets you special summon a dark monster if they generate less attack from the deck in attack mode. This makes it so that they can't do that. And then next monster is the reason why I'm playing Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon. But I play 1 copy of Nirvana High Paladin. Nirvana High Paladin just requires 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner synchro monsters. But you can also treat any pendulum summoned monster any pendulum summoned pendulum monster as a tuner. So what you need is Meteor Burst Dragon and a pendulum summoned Odd Eyes Mirage Dragon to make it. But it has the effect that when it's special summoned, you can target a card. I believe it's a card. Let's see. This card is synchro summoned. You can target 1 card in your graveyard, add to your hand. And if it destroys a monster at battle, you have your opponent's life points. And if it's destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum scale. And its pendulum effect is if a pendulum monster you control attacks for that battle, it cannot be destroyed. And then you take no damage involving it. At the end of the damage step, if a pendulum monster you control attacked, all monsters your opponent controls lose attack equal to that attacking monster's attack points. So what you can do with this effect is if your opponent has a bunch of monsters that are bigger than 2,500, you can have something like Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon attack. You take no battle damage, it's not destroyed, and then all your opponent's monsters lose 2,500 attack, which then makes them a lot weaker. But usually you'll have this as in your monster zone because you'll want to use its effect of adding a card from grave back to hand, and then also being able to have your opponent's life points just by destroying your monster. Then for the Xyz monsters, I play 1 copy of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Flare Metal Dragon has the effect that while it has materials, it can't be destroyed by card effects. And when your opponent activates a card or effect, they take 500 points of damage. Which I believe it's 500. Yes. So I like using this with Odd Eyes Gravity Dragon, just because that makes it so your opponent has to pay 500 and lose 500 points of damage just by using a card. So just by playing 1 card, they lost 1,000 life points. Now let's play 1 copy of number 11 Big Eye. I don't know how I feel about Big Eye, but at the moment at least, I like it. What I might end up doing is doing things like take out Nirvana High Paladin, Big Eye, or an Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, just so I can play 2 more copies of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. But Big Eye has the effect that once per turn you can detach material, target an opponent's monster and take control of it, and then Big Eye can't attack the turn this effect is used. So Big Eye is just a permanent steal, which I like. Then I play 2 copies of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon has the effect that when an attack is declared, you detach material for cost to then negate that effect, and then you can special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your hand or grave. Or as I believe it's hand or grave. Let's see. Yeah, and then if this exceeds summon card you control leaves the field, you can activate its effect to special summon an odd-eyes monster from your extra deck. So you can have this be destroyed, and then you can special summon an odd-eyes Vortex Dragon from your extra deck that way. And then I also play with one copy of Odd-Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon. Odd-Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon has the effect that you can pendulum summon it as long as you can pendulum summon level 7 monsters. And then it also has the effect of... Where is it? It can't be used as Xyz material the turn it's summoned. And then you can detach material from this card. Then target face up to 2 monsters your opponent controls. Destroy them, depending on how many materials that were detached. My mistake, you can detach 1 material, target up to 2 monsters your opponent controls with 3,000 less attack. And then destroy them. I want to say you destroy them. Yeah, you destroy them and you can only use effective this card once per turn. If it's in the monster zone is destroyed, you can place it in your pendulum scale with the effect of during your main phase, use a special on this card, then attach a dark monster from your graveyard to this card's material. You can only use this effective Odd-Eyes Rebellion Xyz Dragon once per turn. Rebellion Xyz Dragon is another thing you can use with the Nirvana High Paladin if it's in your pendulum scale, as you can weaken everything by at least 3,000, and then use this effect to destroy 2 monsters if your opponent still has monsters after the damage step or after the battle phase. Then I play 1 copy of Odd-Eyes Raging Dragon. Raging Dragon honestly is in this deck just so you can use Odd-Eyes Fusion to be able to fuse usually an Odd-Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon with this so you can summon Vortex Dragon. As Vortex Dragon requires an Odd-Eyes monster and a Pendulum monster. But you could technically make use of Odd-Eyes Raging Dragon by adding 1 or 2... Or technically, you can play the 1 Xianke, since it's now extremely searchable, off of the... I already forgot the card's name. Pendulum Evolution. But Raging Dragon has the effect that once per turn, if it was Xyz summoned by using an Xyz monster as material, you can detach a material to then be able to destroy every other card in play, and then it gains... I always forget. Okay, destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, it gains 200 attack for each until the end of the turn. And it can make a second attack during each battle phase. So, but like I said, though, it's right for the moment. It's only in here for that purpose of being used as fusion material. But you can easily add Xianke Magician to the deck, so you can have it in your pendulum scale. And make it so you can have an Xyz monster have its rank become a level. So you can just use Absolute Dragon, make it level 7, overlay it with another level 7 that's a dragon, which this deck only has level 7 dragons. And then make Raging Dragon. And then to finish off the extra deck, I play the 1 copy of Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon. This monster's only in here, so you can Xyz summon it, and then immediately use it to summon Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord. Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord has the effect that if it's you can Xyz summon it by using a rank 7 Rebellion Xyz Dragon, or a Rebellion Xyz monster, and then if you can pendulum summon level 7 monsters, you can pendulum summon this, and then the Xyz monsters only have that effect because when they're destroyed, they go face up to your extra deck, and since they don't have levels, ordinarily they couldn't be pendulum summoned, but with the effect of you can pendulum summon this card. If you can pendulum summon level 7s, you can summon them from the extra deck. Anyway, Rebellion Dragon also has the effect that if it was Xyz summoned using an Xyz monster, then it gets 3 attacks during each battle phase. And I don't remember what else it does. I apologize. Using a rank 7 Xyz monster. This card, the monster zone is destroyed. You can place it in your pendulum scale, and you can only special summon Odd-Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord once per turn. And its pendulum effect is once per turn, you can special summon this card from your pendulum zone. Then special summon from your extra deck 1 Rebellion or the Phantom Knights monster using this card's material. Which, you're never really going to use that effect, as usually when you're summoning this, you're going to be meeting your opponent that turn. As if your opponent just has no monsters, then it gets 3,000 or 3,000 attacks at least. But that is it for my Odd Eyes deck. Like I said, a couple of changes that could be made are you can take out Odd Eyes Saber Dragon, Change of Heart, Soul Pendulum, and then if you really want to use Odd Eyes Raging Dragon's effect, you can toss in the one Xion K Magician so that you can make your rank 7s level 7. And then, I forgot to mention it, but Xion K's monster effect is, if it has a light monster, you can target it as a quick effect and negates effects. But if you have ideas what you can do to improve the deck, and ideas for decks like to be made in the future, or your decks you like to see face each other, such as Odd Eyes and Triple D, feel free to comment down below. Thank you for watching.